It is Prep Bowl week in Minnesota for high school football. This is the course championship week and all the games being played at US Bank Stadium. I'm Randy Shaver along with Jim Paulson and Marcus Fuller from Strib Varsity, and we're going to preview the 7 football games that are going to be played on Friday and Saturday of this week, Friday, November 21st, and Saturday, the 22nd. Well, we're near the end of the high school football season. It goes so fast all the time. 14 semifinal games played last week. Just some general thoughts as we head into championship Friday and Saturday. I'll start with you, Jim, from what we saw at US Bank last week and what we expect this week.
I think that we've gotten the matchups in most classes that we expected. I think we'd been talking earlier. The first 4 classes from 9-player, 1A, 2A, 3A, all 8 teams are undefeated. So those are the matchups we kind of expected in the rankings. And so it played out the way it was supposed to play out. And then in the higher classes, you've got some games, a few teams that have beaten up on each other, and one game in particular where losses were plentiful, but it doesn't diminish the quality of the game at all.
Yeah. How about for you, Marcus?
Well, I mean, obviously the team everyone expected in 6A to be there, Maple Grove, didn't make it. That just opened things up there. So I wasn't surprised to see how that was shaking out. But Spring Lake Park, to me, was the story of the semifinals for me. I mean, I have to be honest, I didn't see them coming, even though they were ranked, I think, 2 in the last poll that you had. I might not have had them at 2. They were undefeated. The competition they played, you could say it was a little bit suspect, but at the same time, you know, when it all mattered in the semifinals, St. Thomas Academy was the #1 team. They hadn't lost all year. I thought they were probably the most dominant team of those top classes with Maple Grove not being there. The fact that they had already beaten Chanhassen, and you know they really handled in the second half St. Thomas Academy. I think at one point it was 20-0. They had outscored St. Thomas Academy. And again, this is a really good cadets team. They were balanced, and Spring Lake Park was kind of the story of the semifinals for me.
Yeah, and they just kind of rode that momentum. Once they got it, they didn't let it go.
Yep.
All right, so we're going to take each of the games. We're going to start with the Friday morning game, which is at 10 a.m. at US Bank Stadium. It's the Class 1A state title game between Minneota, who's a 3-time defending state champion. They've won 45 in a row, against Breckenridge, who also comes in undefeated. What's your initial thoughts, Jim, about this matchup?
Well, you know, you want to look at Minneota. I mean, they've won 3 in a row. I think they'll be going for their 11th state championship, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And they just do it with their system, and their execution is so good at everything they do. I think Chad Johnston, their coach, is one of the best in the state. And they've replaced some big-name players last year. Ryan Maher was a fantastic state record holder, I think, last year, and they didn't miss a beat. And so you hate to ever think that you're going to vote against Minnesota because of what they're able to do. They've always been able to do it, and they beat teams by a lot of points. But you know, Breckenridge is a team that they're undefeated for a reason. You know, they're a good team. They've got a great running back in David Erlinson, and I think Breckenridge can give them a battle. It may not be a victory, but I don't think it's going to be a rout like Minneota's had a lot of.
Yeah, Minneota has. They've been battle tested a little bit this year when they played Eden Valley in like week 2. Mm-hmm. Got a chance to see a larger school into battle. Chad Johnson said we circled that one on our calendar because we knew that was going to be a good test. They probably learned a lot about themselves, but you're right. As you move along, they've been kind of handling teams typical Minneota style, right? Yes. I mean, they've been taking care of business.
Exactly. Last week against Mahnomen-Waban, it was only 28-14. I think they actually trailed at one point in the game, which doesn't happen to Minneota at all this season. And they got it turned around and really dominated in the second half. But, you know, it makes me think that there is a possibility if a team plays well, you get a break or two, and these are high school kids after all. Right. You never know what can happen.
Yeah. Marcus, what do you think of this matchup?
Well, you know, to be honest, it's hard to pick against Minneota. We're going to have our picks in the Strib Varsity here this week, and I'm not going to give it away, but I wouldn't be surprised if both of us pick Minneota. But, you know, I did a list of running backs earlier this year, the top running backs in the state. Obviously, a lot of it is stat-driven. But David Erlinson, he was on that list. You know, I had to make sure that I got some greater Minnesota kids on there. I think at this point, you know, 1,800 yards, 24 touchdowns. But I was surprised, you know, when I looked at Minneota, you just think of this great team, but they've got a good running back as well, in Kellen Bradley. He's rushed for about 1,400 yards this year. He had a really good semifinal. And so I like the battle of the running backs. You know, you talk about this team that's, going for their 4th title in a row and 45-game win streak. But I like individual matchups and this running back battle. And if Erlinson has a monster game, because he's had a few of those this year, it might make Minnesota sweat a little bit.
I think one of the things that we forget about Minnesota is their defense. Their defense has and a lot of kids play both ways. So you've got the Kyson Arndt kid that's playing both ways on the line. But their defense just seems to rise to the occasion, especially state tournament time. Don't you think?
I agree with you in that they've got kids that know how to play the game.
Yeah.
They're taught well. They know what they're supposed to do. They have their assignments down. And like I said, they're coached very well. They don't make mistakes. They don't beat themselves. To me, I think that's the sign of a great team.
Right.
And that's why I say the Minnesota coaches are fantastic. They find ways to get it done, and they do it. They come through. The moment is never too big for them.
Yep. So that's the first game on Friday morning at US Bank Stadium. It's the Class 1A championship game between Minnesota and Breckenridge. Then after that, it's the 1 o'clock game, and we go to Class 4A with two teams that had losses during the course of the season. Orono, who worked their magic into getting into the Prep Bowl. We'll talk about that, I'm sure, here in a second. And Casson Manorville, who had to battle their way through a very tough Section 1 just to make it to the state tournament. And not only did they make it, but then they had to survive a very tough game against Grand Rapids. So I'll start with you, Marcus. We look at this 4A football game. What do you like in this game? What's your thoughts on this game?
Well, I've got a little personal thing with Cass and Manorville. They did beat my son's Hill Murray team. I really, going into that game, I thought that was a good matchup for Hill Murray. Obviously beating Byron. Byron beat both those teams, but, Byron had really handled Hill Murray at Stillwater. I felt it was like a home game. I was really surprised that was not much of a game going into the fourth quarter. It was, within a couple touchdowns. Jim was covering the game. But I was really, really impressed, with Jeremiah Pierce.
Yep.
He's a guy that not only did it running the ball, I think he caught a receiving touchdown that game. He plays defense, and I think in the semifinal he had a 8-tackle game. So, when you have one player that can affect the game in so many ways, I think that really gives Caston Manorville an edge. We talked a little bit before this that, if you had to pick a guy on Caston Manorville, there isn't one guy that stands out as far as like a top-level D1 type of recruit. But again, if Jeremiah Peterson can affect the game in so many ways, receiving, rushing, I think he had 140 yards rushing versus Hill Murray. So I like that aspect of it. But again, Orono's a team where I think I mentioned it. If you had to pick a team going into the quarterfinals, right, that would make it to state, Orono was not a team. It was anybody's radar. I think in the last top 10 poll, I don't think they were in the top 10. And so, but if you watch that game, talk about highlights.
Right.
The 2-point conversion at the end obviously is what won it for them. But before that, a kid named Bennett Halverson had an amazing catch. Tipped the ball up in the air, and he had the focus to come down with it. That's an NFL type catch there. That was the first score of the game, so you figured they make a score like that, they're destined to win, but they needed a 2-point conversion at the end. So, be able to win a game like that for Orono, Marshall's a really good team. I think that gives them a lot of momentum as well.
It wasn't your typical 2-point conversion.
Right.
It was an 18-yard 2-point conversion.
Did I bury the lead on that one, Randy?
After a penalty on a touchdown, I had a chance to talk to Joe McPherson this week. I'm sure you guys have a chance to talk to these guys too. Just a crazy way that Orono was able to fight their way through to win that game, because a lot of things were working against them a little bit. They'd already lost to Marshall early in the year. We expected a very close game. It's exactly what we got. But man, to convert on that play just says so much about the team and their belief that they can.
And when you had to have it,
when you had to have it,
it's win or go home.
Right.
At that point. So
right.
That's what was so impressive about Arnold pulling it through. They've got a lot of good athletes on that team, and Joe McPherson is a fantastic coach. Probably one of the nicest guys you'll ever want to meet too. Very accommodating, very good guy. You kind of root for him a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of think this will be a fun game. I like what Orono does. I like what their quarterback does, Griffin Maurer, is able to bring. They've got a lot of good athletes on the team. They run to the ball well. They've got good athletes on the defensive side of the ball. They've got Greg Essinger's son, I think, is a linebacker for them. So, and he's only a sophomore, and he's one of their leading tacklers. So I think this should be a good game. I think Cats and Manorville may have an edge because they've played a little bit tougher of a schedule, but it'll be a very, very close game.
Do you look at, what do you think the deciding factor will be in a game like this? That I think we all look at it as pretty even. Turnovers, what would you say would be the deciding factor in this?
Yeah, can I take this?
Absolutely.
I think coaching decisions. You know, I don't want to call anybody out, but I think late in the game, sometimes you make a decision to go for it on fourth down instead of punting for field position. You know, those types of things can really sway it. The players are just going to do what you tell them, and both these teams, I don't think has one player, even though I like Jeremiah Peterson a lot, that's going to be like, wow, if we put the ball in this kid's hands, we're going to win. You know, I think the kid that had the 2-point conversion catch, I tried to look at the stats, the receiving stats, and I didn't see his name on there, you know. And so, I mean, they're coming up with plays with people that you don't expect. So I think Arnold might have the edge in that way as far as players, but coaching decisions. You have to make the right decisions at the right time. And again, if you're going for it late in the game on a fourth down instead of field position, you don't get that play. That can flip it, easily flip it.
It's going to be a great matchup for sure. All right, that's the 1 o'clock game. On Friday at US Bank, it's the state 4A championship. Then at 4 o'clock, it's the state 2A title game between defending champion Jackson County Central against Goodhue. Both teams come in undefeated. And of course, the headliner in this is Roman Voss, who's healthy, heading into the state title game for JCC. Jim, I'll start with you because you've seen Roman. I know that Marcus did a story on him earlier this year for Strib Varsity. Very well-known quantity, but it's not. It is about him, but it's also about their team because they have. Yes, one player can't do it all. They don't. They have so much other talent on this football team. Some of it hidden a little bit, some of it's out there like Weston Rowe. But they are built for a game like this too.
A Class 2A team that has that level of talent, when you ever see that? They've got so many players at Jackson County Central. They really do. You talked about Weston Rowe. You talked about Roman Voss, who you can't avoid. Voss is just a transcendent talent. I mean, he's 6'4", 230 pounds. You know, he just runs over guys. He can throw the ball, you know, a ton. He can do whatever he needs to do. He plays defense. He's a one-man gang out there sometimes. So, and in Class 2A against a team like Goodhue, and Goodhue's, you know, they've been a great team this year. They're undefeated. But I just don't think that anybody can match up with that Jackson County Central team. Matter of fact, I'm not so sure that Jackson County Central might not be a top team if you move them up a couple of classes here.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. What do you think, Marcus?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, Jackson County Central is their own worst enemy. You know, I mean, how they perceive themselves going into this, they had a lot to prove, I think, because they didn't have Voss when they won the championship. So Roman, they just, you know, I feel like every game, you know, he was kind of leading him to this point, you know, to make that state championship, to be able to win it. He's had a great career, but again, there's been some injuries that have kept him from this point. So just to get to that stage, you could tell that they were trying to make the knockout blow as early as possible. And he hasn't played in that many second halves this year.
Right.
But he was still playing in the second half, you know, in the third quarter in this game, and they were up 38-0. So you knew that's how much it meant for him to be out there, to be playing. You mentioned Weston Rowe, Ben Gallagher, I think his name is. There's a group of kids that have been playing youth football together for a long time, and they won a lot of games. But they haven't won a state championship with all of them on the field together. Roman Voss's brother, you know, Rudy, is an assistant coach. He started with them last year, and they won a state title together. But again, he's watched his brother lose and not make it to the championship game. And so to get there, again, I think it's all about Jackson County and what they do. But you mentioned it. Some of the players that they have besides Roman, to be able to hand it off to Gage Johnson.
Yep.
I mean, on defense, you know, they make so many plays. Roman had an interception in that game. And I asked him, what was bigger for you, the 6 touchdowns or the interception? He's like, you know, I don't get all the opportunities in the world to get the interceptions, but that was huge for me too. You know, and so I feel like be able to make an impact on both sides of the ball. I think I mentioned it before. When you have players like that, I mean, that just puts you to a different level. And again, if they moved up a class, I'm not sure that they couldn't win.
I agree with you.
I think it's a little unfair that Goodhue doesn't get a little bit of the spotlight.
Sure.
Because Tony Poncelet's had a really nice football season. They had to play Triton. They had to play some of those teams in southeast Minnesota. We all know how difficult football is in southeast Minnesota. Jack Carlson, the two-way player for them, is going to be in the All-Star game. The Russian kids, their name is not spelled Russian, but it's pronounced Russian, but they have had a really nice year too. Could it be one of those things where Goodhue is just overlooked and maybe they could pull off the surprise? What do you think?
I think, I'm going to answer that easily and say, look at Maple Grove.
Yep.
Tom Schuler mentioned that in his post-game press conference, that they used that game as an example. Maple Grove, as good as Jackson County is, Minneota has the winning streak. If you could talk about a team this year that looked just unbeatable, Maple Grove had a lot of talent. They've got kids going, Division I, Division II, a lot of scholarship kids, and they had skilled positions. I mean, they had what it takes, and they got knocked out. Lakeville South has got a tremendous running game.
Yep.
I haven't done the research on Goodhue, how well they run the ball, but if they can run for 400 yards, they have a chance. But again, you cannot think about, obviously a team like Maple Grove, not being in this unless going into the game they thought it was over before the game started. And I don't think Jackson County Central is going to have that type of mentality going into the game.
Yeah.
I agree with Marcus. You're talking about kids.
Yeah.
When kids, you never know what can happen. 99% of the time you think you know what's going to happen, but it doesn't always work out that way. So anything can happen. But if you had to pick a favorite, I would say it was definitely Jackson County Central.
All right, so the last game on Friday night is the Class 6A state championship game to be played at 7 o'clock at U.S. Bank. And it's two teams that finished 8-4 on the season. Moorhead, a 6 seed in the Class 6A tournament. Edina, a 4 seed in the 6A tournament, are both in the state championship. We've been talking, I cannot think of any time in prep bowl history where two teams came into a championship game with 4 losses. Maybe there was, maybe I'm forgetting something, but I can't think of one. I know you've been around a long time. Can you think of one?
And then I racked my brain thinking that same thing. I can think of teams that have made it with 1 loss or 4 losses once, not both teams.
Right.
And usually that team with 4 losses has done because of an upset or something crazy happened to propel them forward. Not when both teams have 4 losses, and both teams are very, very good teams, very capable teams at this point. That's what makes this game so compelling.
All right, so break this down. Edina, Moorhead for the 6A state title game.
Well, they just played not long ago in a game that put up, 95 points, I think it was, where Moorhead beat Edina 51-40.
Jeff Feeney's first game back from injury.
But Moorhead played a game the other night when they beat Lakeville South. It wasn't the high-flying 50-point throw the ball over the place game that you anticipate. They beat Lakeville South, and they just held them down. They stopped the running game. They beat them 26-14. Nobody anticipated that. You thought if Moorhead's going to win games, they're going to win them through throwing the ball and putting up a lot of points and a lot of yards. They showed they can win the game a different way, and that says a lot about where that team is, how they've grown as a team to go from a team that was thought about all their talent and all their passing yards and to actually win a football game in the old-fashioned way. They earned it by just beating up on Lakeville South and beating them physically. And so I don't think anybody anticipated Moorhead doing that at the start of the year. They're doing that now.
I think that on the surface, we look at Jet Feeney and Mason West, and we say that's the headline groups. Mm-hmm. But I think you can also look at Chase Bjorgard. You can look at David Mack, Tay Rich. I mean, there's a lot of, under the big headline, there's a lot of other players there. Sawyer Jazerski on the defensive line for Edina. That could make a difference in this football game.
I'll give you a name, Zach Walker from Moorhead.
Yeah.
So much attention on David Mack. And again, I tried to, pick up some of these numbers, but I don't have them exactly. But I think he's pretty close to, David Mack is, to breaking some receiving records, single-season receiving records. I mean, 1,500 yards, I'm just making it up, 30 touchdown catches, But Zach Walker in that game, he was the difference receiving, have over 100 yards receiving. Jet Feeney, I think he'll be 6-0 if they win this state championship since he's been back. So picks on Strib Varsity coming. Hard to pick against Moorhead, when they have Feeney. But you're right. I mean, it's not just about Jet Feeney. He's the leader. Having your quarterback that, again, he could be maybe the best quarterback in the state as far as if he played the entire season, he might be your all Minnesota quarterback. But I think it's the fact that you just can't focus on one player. I mean, let's just say they shut down the passing game. Then you have Tay Rich running the ball. So and his offensive line, So I think that the fact that Moorhead has the confidence offensively to put up points, and that's where you brought the Lakeville South game in. I think no matter what, they felt like offensively they would be able to score at some point. The defense is where I was surprised that they were able to handle Lakeville South as they did, because Maple Grove, 400 yards they were able to put on Maple Grove. So defensively, I think maybe some of the guys that I haven't mentioned, Zach Walker does play defense, by the way, and I think that's where he's going to be a Division I recruit. But Moorhead's defense, what can they do to slow down Edina? You talked about the running game. Mason West can run it a little bit with his 6'7". How big is he? 200?
About 220.
220. That's a big kid.
And don't forget, we've been talking a lot about Moorhead here. Don't forget that Edina has got some pretty talented kids.
Yes, they do.
And Mason West came back for this real reason. He wanted to win a state championship, which they weren't able to get 2 years ago, and they lost by 1 point on a last-second tackle at the goal line against Centennial. So this is what he's been aiming for, and they're playing as good a football as they played all season long. So West is showing more determination. He's running for touchdowns now. He throws such a great ball. He's a fantastic leader. They've got so much talent in that team. I'm not going to just dismiss what Edina can do, because they've played a tough schedule. All the teams in Class 6A play a tough schedule.
Yeah, they do.
So they're all battle tested. So this is one game where I know we have to do our picks. I still don't know who I'm going to pick in this one. I think it could be whichever way I wake up.
Two teams out of the West in the 6A West Division will be battling for the state championship. It kind of seems fitting when they had 6 of 8 to start out the state tournament. So
it'll be fun.
It'll be a good one. Yeah, it's going to be a great way to finish the Friday games. All right, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to look at the 3 games being played on Saturday at US Bank Stadium. Stay with us.
You support your local businesses whenever you can. And when you open a checking or savings account with Franzen Bank, you're banking locally, because the money you deposit stays in your community, enabling small businesses to grow, families to thrive, and communities to prosper. Put your money to work locally at Franzen Bank and Trust, serving more than 35 communities in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and North Dakota.
My name is Marshall Bjorklund, and I'm a 5th-generation farmer from St. Peter, Minnesota. What you don't see typically is it's a lot of early mornings, late nights, and there's a lot at risk, but there can be some pretty rewarding times too. Obviously my 2-year-old's a little young yet, but my 4- and 5-year-old son and daughter, they enjoy coming up here, and I think it's my wife and I's hope that they want to continue with the farm. Time will tell what happens there.
Meet Border Foods, a Taco Bell franchisee on a mission to feed families, a mission to create opportunity, and a mission to make lives better. A job with Border is so much more than just making tacos. From great pay to amazing perks, working at your local Taco Bell is like working with family. Whether you're looking for a part-time job or a long-term career, you'll find it all at borderfoods.com.
Hungry? Hy-Vee Market Grill is better than ever with classic favorites and mouth-watering new menu items. We've got breakfast sandwiches worth getting out of bed for, made from scratch omelets. And let's do lunch. Try our delicious sandwiches, fresh salads, and the juiciest burgers around. Whether you dine in, get it to go, or have it delivered, the best breakfast and lunch is at Hy-Vee Market Grill.
Are you betting on sports? If you are, know that sports betting is definitely considered gambling, and people who bet on sports, especially adolescents, are more likely to develop a gambling problem. So stay safe and remember that sports betting is illegal and unregulated in Minnesota. This means you're betting on offshore sites with weak data security and super unreliable payouts.
Learn more at mnapg.org/saferplay. Support your teams and community with NSPN.TV. Enjoy exclusive coverage from Summer Town Ball to high school championships. Plus, feature stories and podcasts that bring you closer to the action. Stay connected with NSPN.TV, your neighborhood sports network.
Welcome back. We're going to dive back into the Prep Bowl matchups for Saturday's game at US Bank Stadium. But first, let's just talk about the Prep Bowl in general, because it's been around since 82, something like that. I first started covering Prep Bowls, I think, in the fall of '83. Was probably my first one. But you go as far back, I'm sure, as I do. Some memories, some things that you remember.
Well, I do remember going to the Metrodome.
Yes.
The first or second year of the Metrodome.
And you know what? It was a great facility for the Prep Bowl.
You know, and I remember going there for the very first Prep Bowl in 1982, and teams that you don't see anymore. I mean, Brooklyn Center was in the Prep Bowl that year. I mean, I'd love to see a resurgence in Brooklyn Center. But I do have some good memories of the Prep Bowl. My two favorite are obviously the Totino Grace Championship against Matamidi. Right. I think it's 2005, where Micah Kane caught a tip ball and game-ending play, caught it out of the air, snatched it, ran down the sidelines, and did a flip into the end zone for the game-winning play. And then just a couple years ago, a championship game between New London Spicer and Dilworth Glendon Felton, I think it was in 2022, where a Hail Mary pass was thrown. New London Spicer caught the ball at the 5. The kid was getting caught. I forget his name. He was getting tackled. Turned and flipped to one of his players. His teammates was coming downfield, lateraled it to him, and he scored the game-winning touchdown. Yeah. And the type of plays that he said, I can't believe I just saw that. Yeah. It's amazing. High school football is rife with those kinds of games. You love those memories.
And the Prep Bowl really kind of, when you think of the history of the Prep Bowl, kind of dominated certainly by Eden Prairie and all the championships that Mike Grant has won over that period of time. There was a stretch where they won like 3 or 4 in a row. Yep. And it was so super dominated by the talent that Eden Prairie had at the time. I remember a young Dave Nelson coaching at Blaine and a young Mike Grant coaching at EP as they matched up there. And you've got the great Cretan Blaine games and things like that. Marcus, I know you haven't been so much in the Prep Bowl covering your college sports before you jumped over to Strib Varsity, but some thoughts on getting a chance to cover the Prep Bowl and be a part of it?
Yeah, I mean, to see these teams, they battle all year and they get to this point. And again, you have the dominant teams that are undefeated and the defending champions. I think that's the part where I think I'm most excited about is you have some of these defending champions, like a Jackson County, but you also have the newcomers. Spring Lake Park, I think we thought 1991 maybe was the last time they won a state title. And so I think you have a mix of the defending champions, and then you have some newcomers. And I'm just anxious to see what happens there because, in the 6A final, if Maple Grove was playing in it, we've all guessed that they would win it, but they're not. And you have these two teams with a lot of losses, but some really good talent. And, on the college side, whenever I watched the Prep Bowl or whenever I watched the playoffs, I was always looking for that guy that maybe we might see at the next level. And I'm pretty sure that, there'll be somebody in that 6A game they'll be playing in Division I.
For sure. And other levels of the Prep Bowl as well. I mean, JCC, obviously a perfect example. Right. All right, let's dive back in. Saturday morning, the Prep Bowl continues with a 10 a.m. matchup in 9-player and 2 undefeated teams, Hillcrest Lutheran taking on Hills Beaver Creek. And we'll start with you, Jim. This is a great matchup. Some teams that maybe beginning of the year, Hills Beaver was getting a lot of credit, I think, early in the year, but Hillcrest has really come on late and been very good. Both teams obviously have talent on both sides of the ball.
Hillcrest has played very well, but this is kind of Hills Beaver Creek's year. They lost in the state championship game last year, and I think they anticipated this opportunity this year. Right. And they've got an awful lot of talent for a small school. I mean, they got the Metzger boys with Jamin and Brody, coached by their dad, Rex. Yep. They've got a terrific all-state level player and a Division I player in Micah Bush. They've got a running back. People don't know much about it, but I think it's going to really, really is fun to watch, and that's Eduardo Wagner, who I think ran for 160 yards in the semifinals. So I really like Hills Beaver Creek. I like what Hillcrest Lutheran has done this year, but I think this is Hills Beaver Creek's year to take the title.
What do you think, Marcus?
Well, I'm not going to give away my picks yet, but I looked ahead a little bit or I looked back a little bit. Hillcrest Lutheran, they beat Maple Cannon 40-38 to get there, not in the quarterfinals. And Ethan Swedberg, their quarterback, 5 touchdowns in that game, 3 touchdowns in the second half. Now, you talk about the margin, 40-38.
Right.
For him to make that kind of impact, and I think he does it on both sides, running and passing. When you have a player like that, I think that gives you a little bit of momentum. When you've got past a team like Maple Canton,
He's got some receivers too.
Who all year I felt like they were definitely in my at the number one spot for sure. And I think if you look at the Drew Fisher, 12 catches for 100 yards in that game, like you said, he has a receiver to throw to. I like the fact that we're talking about a 9-player team that has that type of talent where you know that these kids are probably going to play at the next level. We talked about 2A having Roman Voss. 1A, there's some talented running backs there, but the 9-player level to have a quarterback like that could make that big of an impact on a game. I'm not going to give away my pick, but I might have to think about that one a little bit.
You may just have.
All right, so that's the 9-player championship game being played at 10 a.m. at US Bank Stadium between Hillcrest Lutheran and Hills Beaver Creek. The 1 o'clock game on Saturday is for the 3A title, and both teams come in undefeated. Annandale, which I think probably was the preseason favorite to start the year, with Stewartville moving to Class 4A, and Waseca, who's had a great year with Duron Russell, their star football player. Marcus, I'll start with you. Annandale, Waseca, what stands out to you in this matchup?
Well, I remember before the season, we were talking about our dream team, and Darren Russell was on that dream team. And a big theme with the dream team was that you have these 2-sport athletes. Darren Russell is one of the best basketball players in the state, but he's going in Division I to play football for North Dakota State. 2-way player. I mean, he made an incredible catch in that semifinal. I think I made sure I put that on social media, that he uses his basketball skills on that. Well, guess what? On the other side of the ball, Annandale has Colton Purcell, who you could argue that he's probably a better basketball player than a football player, and that says something because in the football game he had a couple touchdowns receiving. He had an interception. I mean, he's the type of kid that can make an impact on both sides of the ball. So I like the fact that you have a Darren Russell and then you have a Colton Purcell. Both of those kids, very competitive. I think Nick Saban said it on social media, and like the kids, I'm looking at Instagram reels and videos a lot. I think he said when you have those 2-sport athletes that play at a high level, that talks about their competitiveness. And again, those 2 players are in the state championship game. They want to win. They're going to come up with as many plays as they can. And the fact that they can do it as a receiver and a defensive back, I think it's going to be huge in this game. 2
outstanding coaches too, right, Jim? I mean, you got Brad Wendland over there at Waseca, who's done just a great job with that program. And Matt Walter, I mean, Annandale year in and year out, they'd be battling Dassel a lot, but year in and year out, Annandale always seems to be there.
You thought they were going to do it a couple of years ago. I think they were undefeated. They won the championship game. I think they lost to Stewartville. I know that Matt Walter's waiting for this opportunity because he's developed a lot of players down there. He's got a pipeline of really good players coming in the Annandale system. I mean, you talked about Colton Purcell, Gabe Westman, wide receiver. They've got just these bookend big wide receivers out there. They've got a 2-quarterback system out there with Braylon Fobby, and their other quarterback is about a 6'4" kid for Annandale. They've got an awful lot of talent. And they can do a lot of things. And don't forget how good a defense this team is. When you have talent, you can put it on both sides of the ball. And nobody scores points on these guys. So I think don't overlook what Annandale's defense has.
Yeah, they shut down Minneapolis North, and that's not an easy thing to do in the state semifinals. All right, so the final game of the Prep Bowl weekend is the 5A state championship game being played at US Bank. That game is a 4 o'clock start on Saturday. Spring Lake Park, we've talked about, undefeated on the season against Chanhassen, who comes in at 11-1. And Jim, I'll start with you. I mean, 5A was so loaded. You could have put a number of different teams here, and it still would have been a great matchup. But I think these 2 teams obviously deserve to be here, number one. But I think the matchup itself is really intriguing because there's kind of like 2 different styles of football being played in these
Absolutely.
teams.
Spring Lake Park is playing their traditional hard-nosed tackling, stop people on defense. They're a rugged team. They run that triple option. They don't get fancy with anything, but they don't have to. And they've always done that. Kids come up to their system. They know how to run the system. They're ready to go once they get to the varsity level. And it's a system that just keeps perpetuating itself. Yeah. And that's why they've been good for so long. So I really like Spring Lake Park, what they've done with their quarterback, Nolan Roach, who's really improved as the season has gone on. I think he had, 190 yards in the semifinals rushing. He really stood out there. So I really like what Spring Lake Park has been able to do. Chanhassen, a little bit more of a balanced offense, but they've got some really big boys and some really good athletes on right. that side of the ball as well. Both sides of the ball, actually. But you look at their tight end, Cade Bush, is 6'5". Their offensive lineman, Owen Linder, is 6'5", going to Iowa. And their quarterback, Nathan Ramler, who's an all-Metro quarterback, an all-Minnesota quarterback, he's 6'5". I mean, it's a big, big football team with talented football players. It's going to be a great football game.
It's kind of like, Marcus, it's a team. I'm not going to call them no-name team, but you know what I mean? Spring Lake Park is kind of like that, under the radar kind of player. We know what we're getting. They're hard-nosed, they're tough, they're physical. And Chan's got like the superstar guys, right? They got the guys up here that everybody's heard about, everybody's talked about. That's what makes this matchup very intriguing in a lot of different ways.
I think, you could argue that Spring Lake Park is obviously the underdog,
yeah.
even though they're ranked 2 in the state polls going in. They're undefeated. But I like the fact that they're a team that won only 4 games last year and the year before. So they could be undefeated. They could be the number 2 team in the state in the polls. But they're 4-win team, the past couple years. So to get to this point, you could say it's already a win for them, but that's not how they're thinking. I mean, right. Obviously, going into the game didn't give them much of a chance in their semifinal. They handled them pretty well. So I think the fact that Chanhassen has these Division I recruits and a quarterback that is an all-Metro quarterback, I think that Spring Lake Park might think everybody's talking about Chanhassen still. They wanted them to face St. Thomas Academy. That would have been a sexier matchup,
right.
And they're going to use that to their advantage. The one thing I'll say about a matchup that I'm looking forward to is Nathan Ramler versus Spring Lake Park's defense. Marcus Snyder, I think his name is. He's a defensive back for Spring Lake Park that leads the state in interceptions with 7, and he made a big interception in the semifinal. And I think, if they try to put it on Nathan Ramler's shoulders, which he can very well win the championship for them, he's going to have to stay turnover free. I like their balance on offense that Jim talked about. And so just a very, very intriguing matchup. Chanhassen's offense versus Spring Lake Park's defense.
I don't think you can find 2 nicer, solid football coaches than Matt Cullen, Cullen Nelson, and John Stewart. They're both just even-keeled, nice guys, but man, competitive and smart, and
they know how to get the most out of their team.
I was just going to say, they get the most out of their football team, regardless of the level of the player
and
that they're dealing with.
You look at Spring Lake Park, they don't have any superstars on that team, but they all play, and they all make plays, and they all know what their jobs do, and they don't fail. They don't make mistakes, and that's a sign of a really good team and a really good coach.
Well, that's the final game of Prep Bowl weekend, Spring Lake Park against Chan for the State 5A Championship. It's been a great football season. My thanks to Jim Paulson and Marcus Fuller for giving us this Prep Bowl preview, and we want to say you can follow the games this week with these 2 guys and Cassidy and all the others at Strib Varsity. Thanks for watching, and good luck to all the teams this week in the Prep Bowl.